Do you think we're free to speak tonight?
I hope so.
We'll see. Right. Last week, obviously, we kind of focused quite a bit on the Charlie Kirk's murder, his assassination, because that just happened the day before we recorded.
Yeah.
And we were quite careful last week in what we were saying about,
potential causes and motivations.
Why it might have happened, which I think was borne out to be wise in that in the week that has passed, there is somebody who
has been arrested.
Well, gave himself up, right?
Did he? Or his parents. His parents turned him in,
Yeah. And there has been all kinds of jumping to conclusions, like during the week, at different points in the week. Yeah, it's kind of flip-flopped between what might have been, and we're still not entirely sure.
I think it's... he comes from a Republican family, Trump voting family. According to a friend, I think he has been largely apolitical, or has seemingly been largely apolitical, very involved in gaming culture. And it sounds like the things that he engraved on the bullets are coming from gaming culture. But then, of course, the FBI has released transcripts of a text conversation between himself and his roommate, who is apparently, I think it's a little bit unclear, but
seems to be a girlfriend who is transitioning. Yeah.
Yes. So.
So the guy that committed the murder, if by what it seems to be the case from these messages that have been released, it was in some way in defense of their partner. Right, because of out of the anger of seeing what the sort of things Charlie Kirk was saying. However, as we were saying, we just don't know, and all the ins and outs, and it's, I don't know, this is where it gets a bit worrying with kind of piecemeal stuff getting released and because it just fuels,
creates a lot of conversation about something that's not very much, and where we clearly don't know the whole picture. So it feels like it's better to hold back and not speculate, other than to say murdering someone for whatever reason is wrong and horrendous, and no one should be doing it. You know. And
that so then what we've seen as which we would be able to predict is how this was all going to be used.
And that's the scary thing.
And that's that's really what we're wanting to talk a bit about tonight.
Yes, it's almost being used as America's Reichstag fire as an excuse to really go after personal liberties of liberals, not Republicans, it has to be said. I mean, a Fox News host right around the time of Charlie Kirk's murder made the statement that perhaps we should just lethally inject homeless people if they won't get off the streets. And that was perfectly fine. No one seems to have a problem with that. Yeah. But yeah. So it does. In fact, I think there was even someone on the right who said, this is our Reichstag moment. We've got to go after and obliterate people who disagree with us. And that's scary. That
being a reference to one of the events that happened in Germany that prompted
it was the excuse that Hitler used to take away civil rights and destroy democracy and create a one-party state in Germany in 1933.
And a lot of debate about that as to whether it just happened, it was a fire there, or whether it was a deliberate act, which in this case it isn't that, but it's how you can, and this is partly what Naomi Klein talks about with the idea of the kind of shock doctrine, isn't it? About how you use events that kind of happen in order to advance your own policies, or corporations can use that by where there's havoc going on in a state, to go in and then take over power over production and resources and things like that. But here it's in order to advance policies that they would obviously the Trump government would want to be doing anyway.
Yes, I mean, it's not really advancing policies, though. It's just taking away the liberties of people who disagree with them. It feels
I think that is one of their
that is
policies.
a policy, I guess. I mean, you think of policies as things that are productive for the nation as a whole, but I guess, and that seems to be where this is heading.
Yeah,
and that's really worrying. Well, that democracy's dead if one side is, if one side in the political debate is killed off, then you don't have a democracy, you have a one-party state.
So a lot of the language that's been used over this past week has been, and Trump himself has used this, that all the violence that takes place in the United States is being carried out. The violence that is not acceptable is being carried out by the left wing. Whereas when he was actually kind of asked and kind of given the sort of the outlet to condemn violence across the board, and he chose not to do it when he was he was on Fox and Friends, wasn't it, I think, and instead he said that those who were on the right, well, they're just interested in law and order, and that absolutely tracks with that he let go all of those 1,600 people or something like that who have been pardoned for their involvement in the January 6th, which was a violent attempt at an insurrection, an attempt at a coup of the government to take over the government, and he has whitewashed that for them.
But he's always incited violence. I mean, at his rallies in the 2016 election, he would talk about, get him out of here. If anyone beats him up, don't worry, I'll pay your lawyer fees. I mean, this is a feature of Trump, and it's what we were talking about last week, that when you have these kind of acts of political violence, what then the subsequent actions really depend on how your political leaders respond to it. Mm-hmm. And we definitely saw leaders on the Democratic side strongly condemning this.
Yeah.
And of course, the right is strongly condemning Charlie Kirk's murder, but they're fanning the flames. It's like they want more violence against people who disagree with them. And so that's what's quite scary. I was just listening to kind of Tim Miller, and he was talking about this issue, and he was saying, you need
to say who Tim Miller is.
Apologies. Tim Miller is he was a former Republican. I think he was worked on Jeb Bush's campaign. But he's a never Trump Republican. So he and other former Republicans have established the Bulwark, which has a Substack and podcast, and he's very active in podcasting. Trying to point out the problems with what's happening right now. Mm-hmm. And of course, he was saying, as a prominent podcaster, stoking violence is a scary thing.
Yeah. Because for those who are in the public,
he's in the public eye. So
I did a bit of going back to kind of fact check some of this, just to kind of get because my
see
kind
what
of
the data
assumption,
really says about political
my
violence.
assumption was that that there's more kind of extremist violence. Now, before talking about this, talking about gun deaths in the United States, most of it is domestic violence. Right, by far. That is the majority of what goes on. But amongst the kind of extremist violence, 76% of extremist-related deaths in the USA over the last decade is by far-right extremists. 18% related to Islamist extremists. So a tiny fraction that would be might be classified as left wing, and the dominant thing here is that, and you see it here as well with the kind of protests from the kind of left wing, they are much more likely to go after property than people,
which makes sense.
And that's what happened with the Palestine action is that went after planes, military planes, and painted over these planes. So rather than a targeted assassination or something like that. So, but that kind of puts it in perspective. And I think just this week, the Department of Justice in the United States has taken off. This report is from the Anti-Defamation League. Right. I think that this research had come from. But they had a report similarly saying that most of the violence, the extremist violence was from the far right, and they've removed that from their website. Interesting, huh?
Orwellian, one might say.
Yeah. So how is this kind of seeing itself out? Well, Pam Bondi came out this week, didn't she? And she came out saying something about how we need to go after people who are using hate speech. And then she had to backtrack on that because those who were on the right obviously had a word with her saying, well, hang on a minute, we don't want it to be as broad as that.
We want our hate speech.
Yeah, we only want it to be speech on one side that we're going after, not the other side there. Which I guess it all ties into we were talking about it in previous weeks about the First Amendment of the Constitution, and free speech is rooted in that First Amendment. The whole of the First Amendment is quite short, isn't it? Yeah. These amendments. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances.
So it's really limiting what the government can do, right? So the government cannot limit free speech.
Yeah, that seems to be the bit that a lot of people miss. That they think the this whole free speech thing is just a kind of everyone and all, but this particularly is aimed at what the government cannot do.
Because I guess people have their free speech, and then people who disagree with them also have their free speech. And so you can disagree and you can choose not to support a company that you disagree with what they stand for. And that you're perfectly entitled to that. That you're exercising your own First Amendment rights by refusing to support a company that, say, was racist or whatever, or that,
And likewise, a company can decide to, if a social media company can just decide to take somebody off their platform because it is their platform, it's their company, that's fine. There's no right that you have to be able to speak on that platform. You can go out into the garden and say whatever you want to say as loud as you can until the neighbours come and complain to the council about the noise that's been put on. But it's that, isn't it?
Yeah, although I guess you need to be careful here, and this is what we're getting into in the States, where, one of the aspects of fascism is this melding of government and big business. So when you have government and big business and their power is melding, and then big business is doing what government says, so then you can kind of by proxy almost have the government stifling free speech through the actions of corporations, which I think is territory that we're starting to get into. Well, we're well into, I think, in the States.
We will exactly mention a case of that later. And we've already mentioned a few weeks ago the case of Stephen Colbert being taken off air, and there exactly that pressure being put on by the government onto a corporation to act to silence somebody.
Yeah, and that get where it gets really scary. And of course, when I think about my family members who are devoted Fox News watchers, would have hit the roof if Obama had put pressure on Rupert Murdoch to fire anyone at Fox News.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, absolutely hit the roof. Right? So the hypocrisy and the double standard is quite scary and then worrying for the future of democracy and free speech and everything in the States.
And it really is being, there's a process being carried out here of deliberately targeting. So one of it was J.D. Vance, wasn't it, during the week, actually came out and said, yes, if you see people who are posting things or speaking about the death of Charlie Kirk in the wrong way, then to report them to the boss of their company.
Which is crazy, because actually quoting Charlie Kirk and pointing out that a lot of the things that he said were really, really unpleasant, dangerous things is not the same thing as glorifying or wishing him dead or being glad that he was killed. I think, it's astonishing to me that, I think some of the people that the right is pushing back against are merely quoting what Charlie Kirk said, and then people are getting angry. James O'Brien over here in the UK, who is a radio host, and I think he'd never really heard of Charlie Kirk, and he started looking into him, and then realized.
Well, I heard a little bit of what he was saying on the. It must have been the day after or the day, it was just, and he was saying things that I was like, because, I listened to quite a bit of James O'Brien, I've read a few of his books, and I was like, he clearly doesn't know who this Charlie Kirk is in what he was saying. Yeah, so, and then in later days.
And so then I think he went and he did some research and realized, and then he was on air saying, well, I've done some research. These are the things that Charlie Kirk said. And people were getting angry at him and accusing him of, being glad Charlie Kirk was dead. He's like, well, I never said that. I'm just quoting what he said. Mm-hmm. And your reaction shows that what he said was really unpleasant, that it was not good stuff, that it was the kind of rhetoric that is damaging to our kind of body politic. All I'm doing is quoting him, right? I guess we have this instinct that you don't speak ill of the dead, right? That there's that phrase. But when you're talking about someone who is that prominent, and then it's almost like the right is wanting to make him into a martyr and hold him up as someone who we should be emulating. And I think it's really important to say his murder was completely wrong. It should never have happened. I mean, if you are supporting the murder of someone who doesn't agree with you, then you don't want a democracy either, right? But we need to be honest about the kind of ideology that he was promoting, and it was very unpleasant.
I'm, as somebody who has done, I don't know, by now, hundreds and hundreds of funerals of people, when you are speaking for them, speaking about their lives, this is a real, we're taking a detour here to...
Typical minister talk.
Yeah, Orson Scott Card and Speaker for the Dead. And that
Speak their truth.
That has always stuck in my mind, that book, when I'm then carrying out funerals and talking to the families and just saying, we want to tell this person's story, and sometimes there are really sensitive things that you're not going to go into, but generally you want to tell the truth about this person. This is who they were, warts and all. They had their ups and downs, and you're not going to dwell on some of the really difficult things that might have happened, but to be honest about somebody rather than giving a hagiography of them, which version. Is just exactly. So I. A few examples, because we're not just talking about this in the abstract.
People are being fired. That's crazy to me. Being
suspended or fired. So I took 5 minutes or so earlier this afternoon just to have a look. There's Professor Karen Leader. She's an art history from Florida Atlantic University. She just reposted some other people's critical commentary about the things that Kirk had been said, and she's now been suspended.
Gosh.
Carolyn and Peter, she had been 11 years with the Washington Post, a black woman, was the only black full-time
employee,
opinion kind of writer, opinion columnist there. The Washington Post being owned by Jeff Bezos, of course.
And they've been getting rid of a lot of people, haven't they? That say things that Trump doesn't like.
So she got fired, and she can only think it's because she was talking against political violence and the double standards there are racially in dealing with violence, political violence, and apathy towards gun control in the United States. And she used, as you were talking about, she used Kirk's own words, and has been fired.
There's
been umpteen pilots from Delta and American United Airlines that have been suspended or fired because of what they had, might have put something on Twitter or whatever.
Crazy, isn't it?
It's mad. And then just last night, or today, we heard about Jimmy Kimmel, who was one of the other big late night TV show hosts. And as is the way with all of these TV show hosts, they do a kind of monologue bit when it's like a humorous take on what has happened that day or in the week. And of course, that's
Trump presents such an obvious target, doesn't he, for late night humor and satire?
It's always been satirical.
Of course.
And so
no matter who's president, but Trump just presents a bigger target than most, I would think.
So he's been suspended, and from pressure by the U.S. government. I've got
which
here
is directly against the First Amendment. That's the government putting pressure to stifle speech that they didn't.
Maybe. I mean, yes, but we'll maybe come back to that because it's exactly what you were saying though about the interplay between corporation and government.
Yes, but when you get that, I think that is definitely transgressing the spirit of that law, right? The government is using its power to manipulate or pressure corporations to do things. And repress free speech. So that's.
But it seems at the moment it can only work where they've got leverage over the company. So the New York Times isn't Trump trying to sue them for like $10 billion or something crazy. So anyway, there's a big lawsuit. That was the Wall Street Journal. But there's a big lawsuit that he's brought, and that will most likely be dismissed as soon as it gets because then Trump will have to give evidence, and he doesn't want to give evidence. No. So, but they are not beholden to him.
Right, there's not a merger that they want to get through or something.
Exactly, and that is the case for the company that owns the TV show that Kimmel was doing. They are wanting to do a merger, and it was pressure from the local, regional kind of companies that then brought the pressure. Here's what seems to be the issue. What brought this out? So this clip from Jimmy Kimmel from just a couple of days ago. That was up.
Right? We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it. In between the finger-pointing, there was grieving. On Friday, the White House flew the flags at half-staff, which got some criticism. But on a human level, you can see how hard the president is taking this.
My condolences on the loss of your friend Charlie Kirk. May I ask, sir, personally, how are you holding up over the last day and a half, sir?
I think very good. And by the way, right there, you see all the trucks? They've just started construction of the new ballroom for the White House, which is something they've been trying to get, as you know, for about 150 years. And it's going to be a beauty.
Yes. He's at the fourth stage of grief, construction. Demolition, construction. This is not how an adult grieves the murder of someone he called a friend. This is how a 4-year-old mourns a goldfish, okay?
It's a joke.
It is a joke.
It's a joke. So there we go. It's satire. That's the whole point. And yet, of course, it's targeted at Trump. And
they don't like that.
He don't like that. And that is, of course, the case for all autocratic regimes,
No.
they cannot handle satire.
Oh, they can't abide being laughed at, can they?
Yeah. So there you go. But Jimmy Kimmel, who of the talk show hosts, I would say would generally be the kind
mildest.
the softest of them on what's going on, and he's away. That's it. He's been suspended. Unbelievable. It's a purge.
Believable.
It's a purge
they definitely
of
want
those
to,
who are pushing back.
And the intention is for the rest of us to self-censor.
Yeah, and so you mean by that you, and this will be for the media, but for anyone who's on social media, just to think twice before they say anything. And that's exactly what J.D. Vance was trying to push. That, I mean, this is real McCarthy stuff of if you see somebody who's saying stuff, then you
dob them in.
tally tail on them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And,
getting people to snitch on each other. I mean, that's how you create a police state, isn't it?
Well,
I mean, I know we're well down that road.
It's going that way.
But I know you think it's Timothy Snyder is what he talks about in his book On Tyranny. He's like, don't obey in advance.
Don't give up the freedoms that you have. You've got to cling to those
you've got
as
to
much
fight
as possible.
for them. Yeah.
And the freedom of speech being clearly part of that.
In the firing line.
In the face of a government that wants to silence you, and that there's only one kind of speech that is allowable. Yeah, it is tyrannical stuff.
And when you start looking at Putin's Russia and Orban's Hungary, that's what they did, is they silenced the speech of people who oppose them.
Yeah.
And that's how you end up with these sham democracies, really.
And all the while, while this is all going on, I mean, you saw the story about Trump and this boat that was coming off the Venezuelan coast.
Yes.
And they blew it up. Blew it up.
And they killed everyone on board.
In international waters.
I know.
What they say was a drugs run, but it was a small boat with 11, 12 people on it. It was most likely it was human trafficking that was going on. And they just blew up everyone on that boat.
But here's the thing.
That's murder.
Oh,
is
of
what
course
that
it's
is.
murder. And there isn't any reason at all, if you thought there was a problem on the boat, which it sounds like there was, you board it.
Yep.
And you take people into custody.
That's
right?
what they
you don't
always
kill
want. That's
people,
what they used to do.
Right? I mean, that's just completely horrendous and completely unacceptable.
Yeah.
But yet the right wing doesn't seem to care about that. 11 people murdered by the government in cold blood.
Extrajudicial.
Silence.
Nothing, in international waters. I mean, it's against all the rules of a law.
But of course, the Supreme Court has said that Trump can do whatever he wants and he can get away with it.
Aren't we going to feel the price of that?
Well, yeah. I mean, people have been murdered by the government in cold blood.
Yeah. So going back to the kind of free speech and the kind of hypocrisy around the free speech and
the conversation that's on the right about that.
Yeah, and just coming back to Charlie Kirk, and who was, I mean, all the folks on the right, even some folks on the left, in trying to be kind of magnanimous in the face of his death, have been talking about him being somebody who wanted discussion with people and was willing to challenge people, on the campuses to discussion about issues
on the debate stage,
and that was all good, and that's part of democracy and so on. But I was listening to Heather Cox Richardson, the historian, talking about this a few days ago, and she was talking about how she was one of the very first academics, who was put onto a website that Charlie Kirk founded, the Professor Watch List, in 2016, 2017. So this was before he really became kind of famous. This was one of the things that led to him becoming famous. And the website was a place where students could report their professors, teachers, for having a left-leaning bias in what they were talking about.
And the whole point of that was
well, it was
to get them fired,
to get them fired, or to put so much pressure on them,
their free speech.
Yeah, that they wouldn't speak truthfully about what the subject matter that they were talking about. And she was talking about, but it didn't affect her really. Although I'm sure she'll get horrendous mail coming to her.
I'm sure she does, because she's so prominent.
A lot of people she knew, because part of what happened is they were doxxed, which means their personal details were released
online,
and then so folks were having to move because they were getting death threats, or they're just horrendous and awful things. And that was all rooted in Charlie Kirk, the work that he had been doing. So that's that kind of the hypocrisy of free speech, is that he was deliberately set up a system that was trying
to repress
free speech.
The free speech of people who disagreed with him.
Yeah, it's only free for those who agree. And I suppose there's an irony in that on the kind of within MAGA circles, there are developing these different camps that are kind of antagonistic towards each other and disagreeing with you. And as is the case with any kind of sect, it becomes more and more pure, and then it splits into all these different groups.
That's
and
one of the
you're going to
things
see that happening within the MAGA movement. I have no doubt, especially another generation on. I'm sure it'll get more divided.
I just really hope we don't have it. If we can do something that we're not having, this not a generational thing, that's just quite a depressing thought.
I suspect, though.
Because the political discourse is just so poisonous. And as you can see, they don't want political discourse. They want the complete shutdown of any voices that disagree.
They want lots of discourse amongst themselves.
Yes,
but endless discourse, and it's unbelievably successful. The media is dominated by right wing sources at the moment.
Billionaires, right?
By billionaires, because they own the
and they have a vested interest in dividing all of us and have us at each other's throats, so that because they're the ones that are the real problem, right? And they don't want us looking at the real source of all of our problems. Much better if we're choosing sides over the Charlie Kirk murder, right? And you see that even in, it becomes this almost, I think Tim Miller that we talked about earlier, listening to him, he was saying it's almost becoming this team sport, and everyone, they're not on my, the killer wasn't my camp, it wasn't my camp, and
it's James O'Brien talks about the footballification of politics, which is exactly that. It's all about the sort of tribal team that your team is right no matter what. And the other team is always wrong, and you must
not just
defeat
wrong
them.
but evil.
And you must defeat. So then you have to defeat them at all costs. Because there is no value in what they have to say, and that's where this is a complete contrast to, as we were saying last week, between previous leaders, where there was a sense of trying to bring in times of bad things. When a catastrophe happens, it was one of the
would try
alarming
to calm things and bring people together.
So you saw George W. Bush even do that with that famous
9/11.
speech that he gave on with his bullhorn on the rubble in New York, and it was actually a message of some unity. Now things then went badly wrong afterwards, but at that moment it was the kind of speech you would expect.
And that's the typical role presidents play. And of course, Donald Trump just doesn't play that role. He further inflames things.
Yeah. Now, the other thing with this, talking about the freedom of speech, and we've been mostly based in the United States, but this is whatever happens in the United States rapidly follows here in the United Kingdom. There's a interplay between the countries, culturally. Obviously, there's so many connections, but socially and in kind of movement-wise, there's a lot of funding that goes backwards and forwards between politics.
The American right wing funds the British right wing.
Yeah. And last weekend there was a big rally in London I say big. It wasn't nearly as big as some of the rallies I've been on down there, but it was still over 100,000 people.
Which is
I think
sad.
were there.
Makes me
And it was
sad.
called Unite the Kingdom. The march, and it was being organised by Tommy Robinson, who is
A far right
extremist figure, has been in jail for violence, and
'Cause he's not a nice person.
He is not a good person. Fascinatingly, Tommy Robinson is not his actual name.
He has a preferred name. This is his preferred name.
Yeah, but there's a weird thing. I mean, it's J.D. Vance. It's not his
I know.
name.
It's not his name
There's
either.
a strange
Weird.
thing going on there. Trump, that's not his actual name, right? I mean,
Is it not?
Drumpf, wasn't it? The family changed
the family
their name
did when they came from
to
Germany. Yeah, they did. They
yeah.
kind of anglicized their name.
But in Tommy Robinson's case, it seems to be to distance himself from his Irish roots.
Right.
I think his mother's Irish,
Tommy Robinson. That does sound like quite an English name, doesn't
exactly.
it?
Yeah. Anyway, one of his parents is Irish, and so it was to distance himself. So at this march, Elon Musk calls in from the United States, and they end up, Tommy Robinson and Elon Musk have this kind of conversation that the whole crowd are all watching. And in that, they talk a lot about free speech and fighting for free speech. And Tommy Robinson says he's so grateful to Elon Musk because, of course, Elon Musk owns Twitter.
Yeah. Or
Brackets X, yeah. And so, which they have tweaked the algorithm on to push far right.
Yes. I mean, I left because I was, even though I only ever followed progressives, and I kept getting pushed right-wing nonsense. So you could, once Musk took over, you could tell that they'd tweak the algorithm. So you were getting content that you weren't, that was pretty horrendous, actually.
So just to kind of prove that irony is not dead, when Elon Musk came on for this interview, he was wearing a George Orwell T-shirt.
Oh, gosh.
And he says, you may notice this T-shirt that I'm wearing is great British author George Orwell. What would Orwell think? I think that's generally a good way to look at these things. He would want freedom of speech. Well, of course, yes, that is true.
But it was the Ministry of Truth in 1984 that was changing history to fit with the current narrative, which is exactly what has just been done in the States with taking off the research that shows that the majority of violence comes from the far right. Oh, right. If that's not an Orwellian move, I don't know what is.
And that's just a tip of the iceberg in all the other changes that are going on in
the Smithsonian.
In museums, they're having to remove
crazy.
all kinds of things about slavery and sort of things that are happening. So there's a lot of that going on. So in that whole speech, Elon Musk, then they get to the point in talking about violence where he says, my message to them, the people gathered around British public, is this: if this continues, that violence is going to come to you. I'm deliberately not showing a video of this, by the way. That's why I'm reading this out, because I don't want to give Elon Musk any more platform.
I agree.
On our tiny channel.
Channel.
But it makes every little bit, right?
Every little.
He says, you will have no choice. You're in a fundamental situation here where whether you choose violence or not, violence is coming to you. You either fight back or you die. You either fight back or you die, and that's the truth today. Now, and of course, is stoking political violence.
And, typically these kind of crowds that show up at these kind of events, a lot of them have violence in their background, particularly violence against women. I don't know what the situation is with that particular crowd, but that historically has been the true of these kind of far right. So he's deliberately stoking violence. And of course, that, again, what we were saying last week, what happens in society after something horrendous, like an assassination of a political commentator or a politician or whatever, what happens next depends on what the leaders are saying and doing. Mm-hmm. And we need leaders who are saying, this was wrong. We are going to deal with it through the court of law. We are not going to take matters into our own hands. We've got it under control. The person who did this is going to be caught and they are going to be punished, not broadening it out to everyone who thinks anything like this person is going to, right? And we need leaders who bring the temperature down, and that's just the opposite of what we've got at the moment, which is scary.
Absolutely, and the irony, and there's multiple
Lots
ironies
of layers of irony
going on here, is that, I mean, what they were kind of talking about and kind of target in how terrible things are going to get is that there is no freedom of speech in a conversation that was being held outside the Parliament with 100,000 people in the public. It's absurd. It is utterly absurd. And yet it's working for a lot of people. You know, that's a lot of people turned out for that rally there. I don't know if you watched Vlad Vexler. No, he's got a YouTube channel.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything from him recently.
He's an academic.
He's good. I like
philosopher,
listening to him.
Musician, all kinds of things.
He's originally Russian, isn't he?
Yes,
so he has quite a deep
he's lived in the
UK
for a number of decades.
Into Russia and Putin.
Yeah,
so he has a lot of really interesting insights and things to say.
And he has often had a bit of a soft spot for Elon Musk.
Really?
Yeah, and it's because of the kind of neurodivergency that he sees in Elon Musk. So I was interested to see what he would say about this. And he was talking about how he feels that Elon Musk has a lot of the, you know, in years past, he's been able to kind of control some of the kind of neurodivergent behavior, and that's all just gone. He is like out of control in allowing his brain, I guess the way his brain works, kind of free rein, and it's going into crazy places,
pretty dark places. Yeah.
Of course, I mean, it's this whole thing, isn't it? When you've got all that wealth and power, no one can say no to you. No one's going to stop you. It's what you see with Trump as well.
Oh, power is such a dangerous thing, and huge amounts of power is hugely dangerous. That's why we desperately need a democratic system where there are checks on everyone's power, no matter who's in power, right? We need checks, and you just see these checks falling apart in the States.
So I suppose if we're going to kind of round things off in this discussion about thinking about free speech, maybe just kind of talking a little bit about, you know, why free speech is important. So we talked a bit about what, you know, the fight that there is over it and some of the bad things that we're seeing happening. But and then you're talking there about free speech is needed for democracy because of accountability. Right.
Yes. And I think it goes back to when we were talking about Jonathan Haidt's moral foundations, and how conservatives and liberals prioritize different moral foundations. But his point in that is that actually both sides have points, right? And both sides, if there is a healthy yin and yang between the two, then, you know, you'll pull one way and then pull back the other way and pull back, and you end up somewhere that is healthy as a society. But when you have one side that's pulling all the way here and there's no pullback from the other side because you've stifled the free speech of the other side, you get to some pretty dark places. You get to places that are not healthy for society. You get to places where people are in danger, where, you know, so you need a healthy dialogue between people with opposing views so that you can reach a compromise. And generally, these compromises are going to be better for society, right? I mean, one of the intuitions that he says that people who are conservative have is that change too fast is destabilizing. right?
We know about that in the Church of Scotland at the moment.
Right? So that's destabilizing. So you have to be careful about the rate of change. Whereas, of course, liberals are, when you're prioritizing equity and preventing harm, that's a really, and then you're pushing change for that. You do need that change, right? You need to be moving toward a society that's more equitable. You do need to be moving towards a society where you're protecting more people from harm, right? But then, you know, the conservatives can maybe help you do that in a way that is more sustainable. But again, if the right wing is completely running away and they're shutting down the left wing that is pushing for protecting people, that's really dangerous.
And I suppose when you're talking about that, you know, I mean, that's the kind of the balances that hold things together, the guardrails, I suppose, for going to an extreme. The press should be, and the kind of freedom of the press, which is part of that First Amendment as well, is, I mean, it's crucial for educating people as to what's going on. So, and I mean, that's what the kind of thinking that traps people in these bubbles where you're just not aware of everything that's going. You're just thinking of things in your own terms, not getting the viewpoint from another. Then where does accountability lie?
Well, and the press has so much power; they can drive certain narratives, can't they? If we don't have
I'm talking about yes. This is exactly the problem here. I'm talking about the press in the
positive
sense, how the
it's,
press is supposed to act as the fourth estate, and all of that kind of thing, in holding people to account.
Yes.
But that is not what's happening because of corporate interests, and then the tally that them aligning with a far right kind of government, and then it all starts to spiral out of control because there isn't that accountability any longer. The other thing which I was thinking about is that you need freedom of speech for education to happen, for science to happen,
absolutely.
For peer reviewing of scientific papers, and for debating things. That all of that there has to be a freedom to be able to express yourself and have that debate and argument in order to come closer to a truth, to get closer to reality. And if you remove that, which is, I mean, that's clearly what's happening in the kind of healthcare in the United States at the moment.
With RFK,
and I saw there was one of the former heads of the CDC was giving evidence to the Congress this week.
I haven't seen
and I think it's it looks like it's just a car crash is happening because it's rather than looking for the truth, it's looking for evidence to support a particular political agenda.
A CDC building in Georgia was shot up by people because RFK and the right wing are demonizing the scientists who are working there. And actually someone who I went to William and Mary...
CDC is the Center for Disease Control.
Yeah, I mean, I went to William and Mary with actually works there. She wasn't there at the time, but I mean, her job is in public health, and these people who are highly educated, have spent their whole lives pursuing public health and keeping the public safe from diseases and finding cures and the vaccines. They're under threat, right? People. The RFKs of this world don't want to hear what the research is telling them because it doesn't fit a narrative they've already decided on.
And when you go down that line, then you are removing any capacity for critical thinking. And what is this going to
truth? Right?
Yeah, what is this going to mean for future generations?
Scary.
Yeah, and I suppose you see some of this in Russia, don't you, with the depoliticization of the population, who just no longer even ask questions about what Putin is doing.
But I think that's a big that is one of the goals of disinformation, is not necessarily to get you to believe the wrong thing. It's for you to throw up your hands and say, how can I possibly know what's true? I can't trust anything. And then you do become apolitical, and then the people in charge can just do whatever they want. And again, there's no accountability because nobody can, it's so hard to sift through all of this information coming at us that it's really hard to get to the truth. It's like a full-time job, isn't it? To try to stay abreast of the news
feels that way.
Right. So,
So there you go. So freedom of speech is important just for thinking, for our brains, for developing our brains, how we challenge things, how we talk about things, how we ask questions, and it's all part of that. Diversity of expression, like thinking about how we kind of get into somebody else's shoes and understand that part of that is all about
theory of mind.
Yeah, freedom of speech, though, in order that people are able to speak from different positions, and we can hear what they have to say.
I mean, it's interesting. Autism research has come on, and with thinking about neurodiversity. But one of the things that certainly years ago, when you thought about, one of the things that they thought was part of the autistic experience was difficulties with putting yourself in the position of someone else, difficulties with that. For some of the people that I know with autism, that doesn't seem at all part of of who they are. They have absolutely no problem with empathy. Talking about that, when you're talking about Elon Musk, you wonder, and I wonder sometimes if power, when you have so much money and so much power, and that is your reality, I think it probably becomes very difficult to see the viewpoints of people who don't have your power and to see, right? I just wonder if, you become so removed that you're just, we possibly don't seem very real to people like Elon Musk. What's the gaming term?
An NPC, a non-player character.
Yeah,
he literally has said that about people who are just minions.
Yeah, so if that's your view of people, then that's not good.
Yeah, and if anyone's watching this and does a little Google search for what Charlie Kirk said about empathy, it's not positive,
no.
Sadly. Last thing I was kind of thinking about with the free speech, importance of it is in relation to human rights. It is in there as Article 19 in the UN Declaration for Human Rights.
Right.
Everyone has, the Universal Declaration for Human Rights. Everyone has the right to their own opinions and to be able to express them freely. We should have the right to share our ideas with who we want and in whichever way we choose. So that's that, being able to defend your rights without a sense of reprisal against that. That's freedom of speech, to be able to do that.
Does seem like it's under attack, doesn't it? Well, I mean, it is, isn't it?
It is under attack.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's some piece of music that I sometimes listen to, and they have some of them have kind of clips of like the Declaration of Human Rights being read, and if I'm sometimes in a sort of melancholic mood, I just read the Declaration of Human Rights. I'm a really sad person.
Oh my goodness, okay.
Because it's so sort of positive in that these are the things that should root us all.
Striving to bring to everyone in society. Yeah. So because there are huge sections of society who don't have these.
And so just as that kind of...
Or aren't able to express these rights, right?
Yeah.
We believe that they should have
everyone
them.
Has them. That's the thing.
But they're repressed in some parts of the world. Yeah.
They can't live them out, kind of thing. Yeah. And sometimes when I'm listening to someone, talking about it, get quite choked up. And I think because of that, just the fear that we are in a time now where
these kind of rights are under
these
attack.
Rights are under attack, and they are.
And for our kids, right?
Yeah.
What kind of
for
world
generations to come.
What kind of world? What kind of world are we creating for our kids? I know it worries me. It does worry me.
It was, of course, Eleanor Roosevelt was all very involved in the setting up of the Declaration of Human Rights. One of the many things she did. bit of a high achiever.
She was pretty amazing.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
And she said this on, I don't think there's audio of this, I think this is just written down, but on the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, where, after all, do universal human rights begin? In small places close to home, so close and so small that they cannot be seen on any maps of the world, yet they are the world of the individual person, the neighborhood he lives in, the school or college he attends, the factory, farm or office where he works. Such are the places where every man, woman and child seeks equal justice, equal opportunity, equal dignity without discrimination. Unless these rights have meaning there, they have little meaning anywhere. Without concerted citizen action to uphold them close to home, we shall look in vain for progress in the larger world.
And that's really just Jesus is the least of these, isn't it?
It is.
Right? If the least of these don't have these rights, then
and that's the whole point of declaring these human rights is just to state it.
Yes.
Everyone has these rights and that equality. Yeah, it is worth rereading them, especially at this time when they're under attack.
Redoubling your efforts to fight for them, for everybody, and again, as followers of Jesus, fighting for the least of these, which it's one of the things that makes me really sad about all of the Charlie Kirk stuff is the groups that are lionizing him are saying, right, that he was a great Christian and he was a great follower of Jesus. And I just think he was trying to take rights away from them. It feels like he was trying to take rights away from the least of these. He wasn't fighting for the least of these. And that's what Jesus was
protecting
about.
The powerful.
Yeah. And we want to be...
Yeah.
The powerful don't really need our protection, right? They need to be challenged. Yeah.
Maybe the last thing to end with, and there's a composer, Thomas Bergerson, he's doing a series of albums he's kind of started just at the beginning of the pandemic, which he's titling the whole series Humanity. I think there's going to be 7. There's 5 of them are out so far. And in the first one, which is all about kind of freedom of humanity, the first album, the music, there's some music that he plays, the kind of main theme of the whole arc of it, the musical theme, and then uses the words of Harry Truman when he was speaking at the NAACP, National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, back in 1947.
Wow.
This is 1947. It's a famous speech. And here's a wee little bit that is kind of, the part of this is quoted in the song. And it hits a little, with the music on top, it's even more. But let me see if I can get it up here.
I should like to talk to you briefly about civil rights and human freedom. It is my deep conviction that we have reached a turning point in the long history of our country's efforts to guarantee freedom and equality to all our citizens. Our immediate task is to remove the last remnants of the barriers which stand between millions of our citizens and their birthright. There is no justifiable reason for discrimination because of ancestry, or religion, or race, or color. When I say all Americans, I mean all Americans. The civil rights laws written in the early years of our republic and the traditions which have been built upon them are precious to us. Those laws were drawn up with the memory still fresh in men's minds of the tyranny of an absentee government. They were written to protect the citizen against any possible tyrannical act by the new government in this country. But we cannot be content with a civil liberties program which emphasizes only the need of protection against the possibility of tyranny by the government.
There you go.
Gosh.
Protection from tyranny of the government. Donald Trump, he's no Harry Truman, is he?
No, not at all. Although, of course, he was saying this in 47, and we didn't get the Civil Rights Act until, what, 67, 68?
Yeah, so that was
20 years.
Indeed. It is a long fight for justice and for the rights
of everyone.
Of freedom of speech or whatever it might be, and how easily they can be taken away again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Heavy.
Heavy indeed.
All right, for my bit, I thought we could just have a quick chat about Trump's second state visit, which I think is currently ongoing, although I think I read he was possibly leaving tomorrow.
And this is very rare I think it's the only time a president of the United States has had 2 state visits.
Yes, it's a little bit depressing, isn't it, that he's here? Although I think he's at Windsor and they've kept him well away from crowds because there were huge protests in London against, I think the Trump baby made another appearance, and I think there was a ball that had J.D. Vance's face on it I saw a video of being thrown around.
Did you see that they were projecting images on Windsor Castle?
Speaking about free
Trump
speech.
And of Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah, led by donkeys who are great.
And 4 people have been arrested.
I know.
I mean,
that's appalling, speaking of free speech. They better be released pronto. I mean, this Labour government, I voted for them. I like some of what they're doing, but some of what they're doing I just find absolutely horrendous. And I don't understand what they're thinking. I just don't understand what they're thinking.
I think they are running scared of the right and running into the right in order to...
But they're alienating people like us. Yeah. I mean, and our kids, how our kids feel about about Labour at the moment. And when they do things like that, when we have police who are arresting people who are just projecting pictures up on a wall, I mean, tell them to stop, okay, right? But arresting them?
So is it performative for the benefit of Trump that they do
possibly.
it? And then they'll quietly release them, once Trump's away?
But,
I don't know.
Oh my goodness, it just really rankles that we're sucking up to Trump.
I must admit, I watched a clip from the arrival of the helicopters down. I
haven't really seen anything. So.
Yeah, of the helicopters to the Windsor Castle, and then there were these horse-drawn carriages, gilt carriages.
He'll have loved that.
Well, so I'm watching it and I'm thinking, it's almost like you're mocking.
You're putting on a
You're putting on you're going to like this because it's all covered in gold. But then, of course, he will.
He will like it.
He will like it.
He will like it, yeah.
It just seemed so absurd. And it was only just to go from where the kind of landing pad was to the main house or where, it was just...
a short distance.
It's embarrassing.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing for everyone involved. And
I know, I kind of feel for the royal family and the Starmers who are having to entertain him. I have a lot of sympathy for the.
It's the position. I mean, this is a challenge the UK government is in. It has to try and keep America on side. Right, and particularly for what's going on in Ukraine and for trying to keep things balanced.
Are we getting anywhere with?
Well,
they seem to have just chucked Ukraine over.
Well, yeah, again, I mean, Trump was saying something today, wasn't he, about being upset with Putin because of what's
But
happening
he
in
says
Ukraine.
that, but he doesn't ever do anything, does he?
Yeah.
It seems to be just
Yeah.
words.
They are still selling arms to Ukraine at the moment. They could not do that. It
Right.
could be worse, right?
That's good. I
for
guess
defending
look
for
on the
Ukraine
bright side.
defending itself.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I just feel like they're in such a difficult position of trying to keep. And you see it, don't you, when the European leaders had to rush over to the White House after the Alaska visit
To support
to try
Zelensky.
trying to rally around
Yeah.
to try and talk Trump into some kind of sensible space. But these are the things you do with a belligerent toddler is trying to guide them into some kind of
Toddler with a gun, you know?
yeah. It's
Yeah.
it's crazy. So it's just the whole thing is embarrassing.
Anyway, I will be glad when it is over and Trump has gone back to America. I'm sure everyone entertaining him will feel
Will be
similarly.
That's maybe true. Yeah, maybe true.
At least I like to think they will feel similarly.
Yeah. Well, mine sort of continues from that. I guess the lengths you go to get away from Trump is that we're heading off up to Orkney for the weekend, and that's I've only been a couple of times before. You've just been once before.
A couple of summers ago, was it?
Yeah, Orkney Islands are so
Amazing.
north of us, but just an incredible place for archaeological sense of.
Yes, if you're a history person, which I am,
Yeah.
it's a fascinating place to visit.
It's absolutely brilliant, and some of the what's so astonishing about it is for us now. It just feels like the Northern Isles, Shetland, and Orkney are way up there. And of
it
course,
does.
if you're down in London, you think Aberdeen is way up there. In fact, if you're in the Central Belt of Scotland, you think Aberdeen.
Yeah, absolutely.
In fact, Dundee is way up there.
We're out of the off the beaten track.
Yeah, but if you went back 1,000 years, it was a hub of commerce because of
with the
all
Vikings
all the boats that were going backwards and
even
forwards.
earlier,
Yeah,
right? It's been
across the North Sea.
Yeah, you just don't think of it
I know,
that way.
Yeah. So anyway, we're not going to be probably have an awful lot of time. We might have a bit of time to go and see a few things while we're there, but there for doing some music, which will be fun.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
Involved in a kind of concert-y thing that's happening on Saturday, and then heading off to Sunday, which is an island we've never
it'd be
been
interesting to see a different island because there are lots of little islands up there, aren't there?
Lots. I mean, really lots.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this one's quite big, but it's an hour and a half on the ferry. To get to it, and I'm leading worship there on Sunday. I'm doing a communion because they don't have a minister all the time, so rarely get a chance to have communion. So I'll be doing that while I'm there. So that'll be nice. A nice wee
long
trip.
weekend.
Yeah. So we will hope for good weather.
Oh
on the
yes,
ferry
because
as we
it's
go.
pretty horrendous, isn't it? If it's not good weather, you can feel quite ill.
Yeah, we're doing this shorter ferry ride rather than all the way from Aberdeen because that's a long trip, but a long drive instead, and then a short ferry. The way we're doing it, but so that'll be us.
Yeah,
looking
that'll
forward
be fun.
to it.
Yeah, no, I'm not looking forward to leaving at 5 tomorrow morning. So
5 in the morning. I've
yeah,
got
that's
quite a lot of
pretty
editing
horrendous.
to do before we get to
so
that.
we probably should
Probably
wrap
should
up
wrap
so
it
you can get started.
Indeed.
All right.
Okay, right, everybody.
Bye.
See you later. And I probably should we do the subscribe thing? That's what all podcasters do, isn't it?
Hit the like and subscribe.
You probably should do that at the start and not right at the end when everyone's already given up.
Yeah, I'm
so we've
still
probably got this all
listening.
wrong. Yeah, maybe
Fix
get
it
there.
next week.
Exactly. Okay, bye, folks. Bye.
Bye.